Former Energy Secretary Rick Perry says that Californians' ambitions may be too high. Raise the roof. There we are, Rick. And he's from Texas, and he knows about grids collapsing. Remember when Ted Cruz had to flee to Mexico because it was so damn cold? So what is the fix for California? Let's get into it with our party panel. We've got the host of the Gary Shannon Show. It's on KFI AM 640 Los Angeles. It is Gary Hoffman. We've got radio host, Democrat strategist, and Fox News contributor, also a Californian, Leslie Marshall. And he is the co-founder of Based Politics, the one and only Brad Palumbo. There he is. So, Gary, I will start with you. There is not enough power to supply the electrical needs that California has now. How are they going to keep it from getting so much worse and so much more expensive?
By requiring everybody to drive an electric car. I have no idea how the math works. Full disclosure, I drive an electric car, but like you're talking about the difference between the carrot and the stick, they're only using the stick right now. The carrots are out there. Gas at one point, not too long ago, was $6.50 a gallon. So I saved money fueling my car with the unicorn farts and the other things that go into the renewable energies.
Yeah.
But I'm not, the thing is, they're being disingenuous. Gavin Newsom may love electric vehicles because they're quiet, they're neat, they go really, really fast, they stop on a dime, they don't produce a lot of pollution when you drive them. But how, like you said, how we produce our electricity in California, 50% of it, especially during the summer times, 50% of it comes from burning fossil fuel. So to suggest that somehow electric vehicles are the complete answer to this is a mistake. There's two issues. The infrastructure you mentioned, a lot of these transmission lines will have to be replaced or buried. And the second thing is storage. They want us to store a lot of the energy that I, for example, produce with the solar panels at my house. But a battery is going to run me $10,000, and I get not a great benefit out of it just yet.
No, but you do get higher energy costs, and this is what SoCal Gas and LADWP and PG&E have been promising for years. The more people who switch to their own personal renewables, Leslie, the more expensive it's going to be, not just for them, not just for the lucky people who can afford $30,000 in solar panels, and that's with the government rebate. It's really going to hose the people who are forced out of traditional cars.
I remember when microwaves were $3,892 because I wanted to buy my parents one and I couldn't afford it. Certainly not the case now. And I think we're going to see the same thing. Look, I'm going to admit, perhaps, I don't think it's bad to have a goal to reduce emissions by 85% and to reduce oil consumption by over 90%. But I would agree that maybe it's too aggressive with the timeline. You need to have an end game. And I think they do have an end game, but I don't think the timeline meets that end. I do remember, however, this past summer, unlike Texas, who did not have as much renewable energy sources as we did, about 40% in the summer, and our grid didn't collapse. So all the people that predicted in the summer that it would were wrong. I think Rick Perry, interestingly enough, although, yes, you mentioned that Kennedy comes from Texas, where they don't have the renewables, and their grid did collapse, not just once, but twice.
Their renewables,
here in California,
their renewables
we're not headed toward that.
Because it was winter, so the solar panels were not absorbing as much sunlight, and the wind turbines froze. So they weren't working. Everything they had came to a grinding halt. It wasn't that they didn't have enough. California has an abundance of that stuff, and it's still not enough. And Brad, they get 30% of their fossil fuels from out of state.
Yeah, look, that's not surprising to me. But for me, all this talk from Gavin Newsom and the Democrats that run the state government in California about, getting to zero emissions, reducing carbon emissions, it's all well and good. But I don't really think they mean any of it, because if they did, they wouldn't only have just one single nuclear power plant left in that state. In fact, they just a few years ago had 6. They've been in the process of decommissioning them. If you care about addressing climate change, if you care about reducing carbon emissions, you don't shut down a zero emissions, highly safe, highly affordable form of energy. You just don't.
Nuclear.
I think that tells me it's more about rewarding his crony allies in these solar and wind industries who want these subsidies, who want these regulations giving them customers, which I have nothing against renewable energy, but they are learning the hard way that this isn't how you really do it if you care.
It's not enough. I hate to say it. I agree with you. I share that love. I hope that in 10 years we can drink out of swamps. But you know who's edging closer to collapse? Not just California, the Chicago police force. The number of Windy City cops reportedly down nearly 20% since Mayor Lori Lightfoot took office in 2019. The mayor continues to gaslight her constituents, saying the people are safe because there are more police, even though there are less. Why? So speaking of unsafe, travelers at Chicago O'Hare International Airport say it's turning into a giant homeless shelter. Come visit Chicago, Europeans. The problem is getting worse day to day, and forget about being a cop. Who would want to travel to Chicago? So it's very interesting. Gary, the mayor says that police are being sent to areas that need it most. Apparently, she is the area that needs it most because she has 150 officers on her personal protection detail.
Well, I guess as far as she can see, there is no downturn in the number of police officers in Chicago because she can't see anybody because they're all crowded around her. It's a weird thing that she's actually not realizing. There's 9 other candidates, I think, on the primary coming up next month, or coming up in a couple of weeks, as a matter of fact. And the top 2 challengers that she's got are both running on the issue of increasing hiring for the Chicago Police Department and getting rid of David Brown, the current Chicago Superintendent of Police. That alone should be a message that the voters of Chicago are tired of her. This is a weird thing that we do in the United States here, where we have a bad choice between an incompetent incumbent and a stranger with relatively little political experience, but we vote for the relative stranger because we desire change in some cases.
So we'll see if that happens, Leslie. I don't think it's good news trying to get people to come to Chicago, because when images like this are beamed out to the world, people go, I don't want to fly through there. That looks gross.
Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, she shouldn't have 100 police detail. I would agree with that. Second of all, she's not incorrect about the policing. In 2022, there was a huge staffing problem with the police in not just the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois. And they had a lot of people that they needed to hire in fast. They actually lowered the standards of hiring. And the reason you see the 19% drop is actually people that are quitting, people that signed up and then said, this isn't what I signed up for, or they really don't like it. So that's not all on her. Let's go to, and I used to live in Chicago for 4 years. Great city, I love it.
It's a great city, but she's in charge of the police. She's the mayor. She's their boss. And when you have mayors who hate cops, guess who doesn't want to be cops? Good people who should be wearing the badge and protecting people. They don't want to be a part of the profession when they are not supported by leadership. Guess what? She's leadership.
I don't think she hates cops, and I want to go to O'Hare. The problem with homelessness, we have it here in Los Angeles, we have it in every major and even medium and small-sized cities in the United States. And it comes down to, at least in the city of Chicago, they don't have enough shelters for the people. Shelters are not controlled by the state or federal government. They're controlled by religious and charitable organizations. And then in addition, how did those people become like that? Extremely high prices on purchases and on rents from real estate developers.
And in addition to that, people that lost their jobs over the pandemic. It all goes back to a failure of leadership. It all goes back to government. Brad, we're running low on time, and I hope you can put a beautiful button on this.
Yeah, I would just say that maybe we wouldn't need as many police officers if we didn't ask so much of them. We asked them from everything to be everything from first responders to social workers to therapists. And maybe Mayor Lightfoot should stop having them enforce gun control, which clearly doesn't work in her city. It has a huge gun violence problem, and have them focus on violent crime.
Yeah, but they go, oh, it's all from Gary, Indiana. That is so racist. Party panel, thank you so much, Gary, Indiana, Leslie, and Brad.
Thanks.
You're all wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for thanking.